conversation is going round. People talking about the colors come to town. Fresh as a summer breeze, she'll take you by surprise.
Good morning and welcome to another fabulous episode of Fresh Waves here on Whistle FM. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Behind the board this morning is Jason Rumball. Happy Jay, good morning.
Good morning, Bren. How you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Doing very good, thank you.
I'm glad that you look so awake and refreshed this morning.
I sure am. Yeah, it's all about being refreshed on Fresh Waves.
Yeah, it's fresh. This is the general theme that runs through the show.
Of course, yeah.
Fresh ideas, fresh new waves, fresh waves. Yes.
Yeah, we're on to something here.
We certainly are. Okay, well, I've got to give a big shout out to Reese's Market and Bakery for the fabulous muffins in the studio this morning. We got a little bit of everything for your tasty treats. You can go into Reese's Market there at 5758 Main Street right here in Stouffville. You know, Jay, one year I'm going to have a whole series of shows called If This Didn't Happen in Reality, You Would Never Believe It. Right? Like my morning.
Yeah, you had quite the morning.
Yeah, chasing my deaf dog around the backyard because she can't hear me. And so every time you call her, she just keeps on wandering. It takes me 10 minutes to get her in. And then I get her in. She's covered with mud. I'm covered with mud. Leave to come to the station. Driving down Highway 48 after navigating the disastrous roundabout at Bloomington and 48, which is just a joke unto itself and a topic for a whole show one day. I'm behind a dump truck that's doing, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 kilometers an hour. So I think, as the Stouffvillian that I now am, duck out, go along Bethesda. So I go along Bethesda, get over to 9th Line, and I'm behind the street cleaner. That's going even slower. One of those mornings.
One thing after another.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, so Believe It or Not, that's a show we're going to have one day, the Believe It or Not show. Anyway,
Okay.
Today we are going to be talking with Karthik and Barbara from Point of Light about all kinds of different modalities and self-help and wellness and healing kind of things. And I'm really happy to present this show because I feel that there's so much out there right now that the general populace doesn't know where to start. If you trek off to the library and go to the self-help section, you are overwhelmed with a number of books. Going to any of the big bookstores, it's like floor to ceiling and 3 rows deep. You're just buried in self-help. And some of it actually starts in the middle, I think. They assume that you know what the modality is, and then they continue to tell you all these advanced methods, when if you're just starting out in this kind of holistic end of health and wellness, it can be a maze, and you need to start at the very beginning. So today we're going to start at the very beginning, and we're going to talk about, well, all things healthy and good for us, and things you may not know about. People toss out the word Reiki. It's great. It's a wonderful thing, if you know what it is. Mm-hmm. My mom is a reflexologist. I can toss that out too, but if you don't know what it is, you have no idea how good she is at what she does, or even what she does. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So good morning.
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 How are you guys doing today?
Good.
Very good.
Did you get behind the street cleaner, or was I the only one?
No.
Pretty good.
No, you're fortunate.
Good. I seem to be all by myself on the road behind the street cleaner. And I was in a huge cloud of dust, and I just got my car washed yesterday.
Oh.
It's just one of those things.
It was just one of those days. Yeah. Anyway, actually, I'm talking like that, and it's only 10 o'clock in the morning. Good grief. So, you guys have a store. What do you call the store other than Point of Light? It's like a...
Well, we call it the Point of Light Mind, Body, Spirit Store and Center.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because not only do we have all the products, but we also have the holistic therapies, and then we also have all the events and workshops and classes that we do.
Okay. Now, that's a good way of describing it, because you really do a whole lot of things under one umbrella. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty, just saying.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alicia, you know Alicia? She does African dance and stuff.
Yes.
She was telling me about your store at Drum Camp one year, and she said, "Yeah, it's in the same plaza as Nature's Emporium." So I go driving in there, and for the first time, I actually looked at what else is in that plaza, and I thought, "Oh, look at that pretty one over there with the purple and white." Sure enough, it was you guys. So that was very good. How did you come to owning a store and doing what you do?
Yeah, it's an interesting story because both Barb and I have corporate backgrounds.
Corporate backgrounds?
Yeah, we do. We both have banking backgrounds. For me, I got a technical background, so I've got an engineering degree that landed me a banking job. So I have a tech mindset. I've done stints with different banks, but all of this started with Barb. So Barb and I met, and at the time we were competition. She was RBC and I was TD. So we used to joke about the fact that which bank is better. We have our own loyalties. But it's funny because it's just, it's like a cliche this day and age that it was kind of meant to be in a way. It seems like we were led down this path, starting with Barb, of course, and then you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole idea of spirituality and everything, really started for me at a young age. And then in my 20s, as soon as I left university, it was like a light switch went on, and it was like, okay, what's life all about? Why are we here? What's the meaning? What everybody's, is telling me, it's not giving me the answers that I'm looking for.
Okay, so what is life all about? I think I'll be a banker.
Well, of course, that's where it took me. But there was a lot of searching and seeking in between that.
So what did you do at university?
I did a general degree at Western.
Okay.
Yeah. I was going to go. So here's the funny thing. I was going to go into business. I took it. I hated it. And then I ended up in business.
Hey,
yes.
Kind of in a roundabout way.
Meant
But,
to be, right?
Yeah. But the main thing here is that really what was most important to me was, following the spiritual path and figuring out what that was for me, which led me to a lot of interesting things. And then finally sort of a group and a group of people that I really settled in with and spent a lot of time studying and learning for about 20 years before Karthik and I ever met. And you can say what your background was.
Yeah, so my background is Indian. I grew up in India, and grew up in a very spiritual environment in that sense that my mother is to be credited for almost everything that I know of, because she started me on the right path, on the right foot. And that has always been my reality in terms of, thinking about the big questions in life. Why are we here? What are we doing here? What is the right thing to do? So those are the moral questions that always make me think about the next steps and do the right thing. But on a practical note, I grew up and fortunately got an engineering degree, and it taught me quite a bit on the practical side of things, and that is what got me here in Canada. And
so you did mechanical engineering, or what's
my background is on electronics communication.
electrical engineering.
Electronics, yeah. So I learned to talk about radar, sonars, all plan, program chips, computer chips, and things like that. So my background is programming, and that is what got me here, because I was doing programming for TD from India. They said, hey, you know what, come over here. And they liked my work ethic. They kept me around. So I'm like, okay, I don't mind it.
Yeah. It's a nice place to be, a little cold.
It's lovely. It was lovely for me. I had never seen snow at the time, right? So it was great.
Okay,
Yeah.
so okay, he's working at TD
Yeah.
in the technical end of things, so IT or whatever you're doing there at TD. And you're at TD.
No, I went into RBC.
Oh, RBC, right?
Yeah. I ended up following a career path that led me to RBC.
Uh-huh.
And we didn't know each other at all. And of course, we met through a meditation group.
I think if I was in banking, I would need to do meditation too. Probably during the day.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Exactly. It helps.
It
Trust
does,
me.
yeah.
You need to have those resources, especially for the people out there right now who are still in those grinds, in those, in the corporate world. All these tools can be really useful.
It is really useful.
Yeah, for sure.
But, yeah.
So why did you take up meditation?
Well, it's just part of when you start developing spiritually, you understand that it's just part of one of the things you have to do. You have to learn to go within. You have to learn. It's very important, getting in touch with your soul, yourself, and then ultimately with the divine, if you practice long enough. and there's a whole world that exists beyond this world. And if we can spend some time there every day and tap into it and get to our core, it makes life a lot easier here, you know, and helps with our judgment, helps with our just seeing everything in a different way, you know, and managing, because it's very stressful, right? Life, we all know, is very stressful here. And so there's reasons for that. But yeah.
Let me. So I got the tech background. So generally, I look at these things from a very scientific perspective, and fortunately, if it makes sense to me, then some of this new age topics, the cloud of being called hokey gets out of it. So for example, meditations and mindfulness as a practice, it helps because what it does is it helps different parts of the brain fire, which in a normal state of awareness it's not. Typically, depending on the person, we're not using every ounce of a brain that God gave us. But when you do these mindfulness techniques, you are making sure that both the hemispheres, the left and the right, is analytical and the intuitive part of firing in unison, and that helps us perceive much more. So there are practical, scientifically proved benefits that come out of these techniques, which is why Barb was saying earlier that this day and age it is needed for people because we are working so hard in our fast-paced lives to take a moment, go deep either within or without whatever meditation practice you follow, and gain that perspective, and then come back and go back to your practical life. It gives you perspective.
Also helps you to slow down, doesn't it?
It does. It helps you to slow down and force.
What do they call it? The monkey brain?
Yeah.
Just stop monkeying around and just
Absolutely.
be quiet for a little while. I mean, we do it with kids, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, people have their kids and they will tell you, they were overstimulated, so they're overtired, and it takes a long time to calm that child down. But we know how essential it is. They can't sleep, they can't eat, they can't function properly, and they're young enough to just let their emotions run amok. And they will cry. And I can tell you there's a lot of grown-ups who wish they could do that, just go into a closet and go, "Wah!" Because they're just so wound up and they're so overtired and they're overstimulated.
Yeah.
And meditation seems to be a great way of just calming that.
Yeah,
Just bringing
absolutely.
your energy
Even
in.
just breathing alone, just sitting down and breathing and following your breath in and out. And it actually, calms the parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and
It does.
that alone, and then it puts everything back in perspective. That's one of the
Right.
great things, right? And you remember what's important.
Yeah. I mean, there are, we are getting more and more scientific research that are proving some of these age-old techniques and their benefits.
Absolutely.
Which without the backing of the science, we thought, there was just old wives, old grandmother's tales kind of thing. But now we understand. Like, I'll give you another example. You mentioned breath work or just breathing in, So if somebody's just starting out and they don't know meditation from an iota, so they can just think about just taking 7 deep inhale and exhale, as simple as that. And what it does is it basically calms down your pace, your heartbeats. In a stressed situation, our heartbeats go out of sync. And if you look at the rhythms of the ECG waves, it is out of sync, and when that happens, the three major systems in the body, the endocrine system, the circulatory, the blood system, the skeletal muscular system, they are out of sync with each other. And we were designed to work at best at optimal capacity when all three were in sync. And the organ that actually binds them together is the heart. And when we are in stress, we don't realize our heart is out of sync, and that throws everything out of whack. So when you breathe in and you just bring yourself back in, your heart gets into a sense of sync, and it syncs the other three systems. And slow and steadily, what it does, it actually decreases the cortisol levels in the body, which causes other ailments and things like that.
Fight and flight response.
Fight and flight response and all that. So simple techniques people can do. Like if you're heading into a meeting, just before that, just calm yourself, take some 7 deep breaths, simple as that. And that'll get you into better perspective to handle whatever comes your way in the meeting. We use some of those techniques, to different effects, even in our banking careers.
Yeah.
And
we always talk too about that, the systems that you were just speaking about. If you can't understand all the science behind it, think of a car has 4 wheels.
Yeah.
Take a wheel off, and how well does it run?
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So people think, oh, I can just run with 3 wheels.
No.
Not really very well.
No.
If you do that visual image, you'll see that it just doesn't work.
Yeah, we
Doesn't
weren't
matter
designed.
which one you take out.
Yeah.
All
Sparks
4 of
start
them
flying.
need to be going. All 4 of them need to be running well in order for you to operate well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and just have a station ID and stuff like that. You're listening to Fresh Waves. We're talking with the owners of Point of Light, and they are such points of light. We'll be back right after this.
This is the sound of safety.
911 call center.
Hi, yeah, I want to report an impaired driver. There's a car swerving all over the road. I'm on Highway 8.
The police want citizens to call 911 to report impaired drivers because keeping them off the road is everyone's responsibility. If you suspect an impaired driver, pull over, call 911, and save someone's life.
Change for the better.
Mad Canada, helping the victim, stopping the crime. This is the sound of safety. It's a vehicle alcohol interlock. It measures alcohol in a driver's breath. If it finds any, the car won't start, and someone, somewhere, won't be in danger. We're Mad Canada, and we believe people convicted of impaired driving should have an alcohol interlock in their cars. Yes, it's an inconvenience, but death is final.
Change for the better.
Mad Canada, helping the victim, stopping the crime. These are the sounds of impaired driving. And then,
Patrick, my boy.
I don't think he's gonna make it.
when you drive impaired, there's a price we all pay. Emergency response costs, doctors, caregivers, and more. Studies show that impaired driving costs us billions of dollars each year. But the victims of impaired driving pay the biggest price.
Change for the better.
Mad Canada, helping the victim, stopping the crime. Is this the sound of a car being driven by an impaired driver? You don't know. The police don't know. Until this happens. At Mad Canada, we work to stop road crashes caused by impaired driving. And when tragedy strikes, we work to comfort and assist the victims. Support Mad Canada's work because the pain never stops.
Change for the better.
Mad Canada, helping the victim, stopping the crime. This is the sound of a decision.
All rise.
The choice to drink alcohol and then drive a car. If you kill someone while driving impaired, you should face a long term in jail. That's a deterrent. But too many get off easy. That's a disgrace. At Mad Canada, we believe the victims of impaired driving deserve respect. Offenders deserve jail.
Change for the better.
Mad Canada, helping the victim, stopping the crime.
We're taking strides to make a difference, to show we care. Strides for change.
In communities across this country, Mad Canada hosts Strides for Change, an annual 5K walkathon and wheelchair event. Help raise awareness to stop impaired driving and raise funds to support the victims of this violent crime. So join the fun. Together, we can make a change.
We're taking strides to make a difference. Strides for change.
Visit stridesforchange.ca.
Well, we're back on Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. We're talking with Barbara and Karthik about, well, we're starting with the story of you guys and how you came to having a store from being bankers, both of you, into having a store called Point of Light instead of How to Bank Reasonably. Either one would be great, but okay.
Yeah.
So you talked about breathing and the centers and meditation. Now, this is something that you had already started while you were in the corporate world.
For sure, yeah.
And did kind of it take over your corporate life, so to speak?
Well, I think the corporate life was a fantastic experience. Like for me, I'll speak for myself, was a fantastic experience. I got a ton of skills. I learned so much. It really challenged me. But after 20 years, I'd sort of been there, done that, right? So it was time. And at the time, we had already met as well. So
Through the groups that you were
through
starting?
the group, yeah, we met at a meditation group, and then
Now, how did you find this meditation group, just out of curiosity? Because I think that when we're in a specific world, like banking or like big commerce or business, you tend to live in that world.
yeah.
So I don't see the meditation light on in that world very often.
Yeah.
This is something that you decided on.
Well, because of my other interests, like it was almost like leading a dual life to some extent, but because you don't bring that into the corporate world and you don't talk about that kind of thing. I think it's changing a little bit. I've been out of it for 6 years now, but our customers who come in, we talk about these kinds of things a lot, right? Because so many of them are still in that world and they feel like they can't be themselves. And especially when they come to the store, they say, I can talk about this stuff and somebody who understands and all of that. But I lost my train of thought.
Actually, what you just said is really important. It's somebody who understands, but you don't understand just one side of the fence.
Yeah.
You understand both sides of the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a really unique perspective to have, because a lot of people, I've met 20-year-olds who are so spiritual, I'm amazed.
Mm-hmm.
I was not that person when I was 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it fascinating. But for that person to be able to relate to someone who's been in the corporate world for 20 years, it's not possible. They don't have that frame of reference, but you do. So I think you offer a very unique standpoint to people.
Yeah, it's a well-rounded set of skills, really. And one of the things, I learned early on is that, you got to take care of yourself, right? Walking a spiritual path is all nice, but in this day and age, we really have to be able to provide for ourselves, first and foremost.
Eating is a nice thing. You have to have the money to go to the grocery store.
Yeah, absolutely.
Paying the rent.
Spiritual as you are.
Yeah. Well, we got to be part of the world, we got to have both the practical and the spiritual aspects to our sides. And that's a fine balance. It's not everybody succeeds all the time, but that's what we need to strive for, to have that perfect, Zen path, walk the middle way. I think for both Barb and I think meditation was something that we picked already. I think we've been doing this. For me specifically, like even before I started working, meditation and Reiki and energy work and things like that, there was normal talk in a household growing up. So when I got into the mainstream workforce, it was still part of me, but I realized quickly that this wasn't at the time something common to these corporate places. So ergo, this is why Barb alluded to leading the dual life, because if it is not common, you try and change it slowly and steadily, but don't come out too forceful, because it doesn't make the same appeal to the people.
Right.
So going in, doing our jobs, putting the suits on, and doing the corporate work, but
Putting
changing
the armor on.
putting the armor on. Yes. Yeah.
Hiding your crystals in your pocket.
Yeah.
You're still doing that today, just saying.
Yes.
You pulled your crystals out of your pocket this morning. You got them there.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, just now it's a little more easier, but every place, every position that we have put in, it's got its own pros and cons. So yeah, it was just part of our normal lives, and it was synchronous that both Barb and I were invited to this meditation group in separate times, but we were supposed to meet up. It seems like, and we met up at the full moon of Gemini in 2009.
Yeah, 10 years ago.
10 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You actually remember it was the full moon of Gemini?
We do, yeah. We celebrate as our anniversary every full moon.
Yeah.
Full moon of Gemini.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
Wow.
Yeah. So you asked me how I got there. Basically, it was just through a friend, somebody that I knew more on the spiritual side, who had this group, and so I ended up finally. I hadn't been there before, and I went down, and we met.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah. And that's
Okay,
where
so
we
you
met.
met, but you're both bankers, and that gives you something to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
That was one of the things. It wasn't that passionate love at first sight or anything like that. It was more. It was definitely a meeting of the minds.
Yeah.
Right, and then a meeting.
How's your bank?
Of the
Oh yeah.
Oh, you're in banking. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
Why are
Yeah,
you
no, it's
meditating?
more. It was more when we talked about the spiritual stuff. That's
Yeah,
where we really,
that's where we really connected first, yeah.
Connected. And the other stuff is just, I understand what you're going through. 'Cause, this is what you do for a
Been
living.
there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With
so
the
we understand all
with
that
the differences here and there. She bled blue, I bled green at the time. So
Oh, really?
with the banks.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Not because he's an alien.
Oh, okay. As long as we've now got that completely straightened out for our listeners, then everything is good. We're good to go. Okay, so you meet at meditation.
Yeah.
And start hanging out.
Yeah, we started hanging out. Well, the first thing, like I said, we went for a walk in the woods up here one day because he was living down in the concrete jungle. So I invited him for a walk in the woods because he kind of missed the nature. And we started talking about spirituality and realizing that we were totally on the same page, very much so. And so it just kind of went from there. And so we, as together as a couple, we continued our studies, but then we started getting asked to do talks on metaphysical topics and things like that. So we were holding full moon meditations ourselves at our home, or we were going to other people's homes and giving talks about what we know and stuff like that. And that went on for about, I don't know, 3 years.
3 years.
3 years. And
So
then,
you still had full-time jobs at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it was, I realized that I started to feel first that I didn't belong in the corporate world anymore. And in fact, I sort of said to Karthik at one time, I said, I put it out to the universe actually first. I said, okay, I really don't feel I belong here anymore. You tell me where you want me to go.
Where I fit.
Yeah. You tell me. I will go. I will do. I will be of service for whatever you would like me to do. You just guide me there. Well, it wasn't too long later that I got laid off for my job.
Oh.
Yes. And
Isn't that interesting?
It was very interesting because I said I would do what you want me to do. And I even knew it was coming. I told Karthik before it happened.
Yeah, she called me the day off. I'm like, don't panic. There's nothing like that.
I said, I think I'm going to get laid off. And it was really weird, too, because there was no reason that I should in my area and stuff like that. And the day of, I called him. I said, today's the day. It's going to happen today. And sure enough, that was the day.
Wow.
So, and this was after 15 years of that particular company, right? All of a sudden, just like that. And I thought, okay, I'm like, this is a big test, right? Like, do I panic now, or do I, what do I do?
Yeah, or realize that you asked.
Yeah, and, and I was all these years used to supporting myself and all that kind of stuff anyway, and realizing that I asked, So the first thing I did is, I was, even though I was laid off from that position, I could go out and find another position in the company. So I said, okay, if I can find another position, within these 2 months, I am meant to stay here. If I cannot find a position, I'm meant to go, and something new is awaiting for me, right? And I worked so hard to find a new position. Even the HR lady said, I've never seen anybody work so hard to find a position back in the company. Yeah. Anyway, so I got the package, which was nice. But one of the interesting things about the package is not only do they help you for finding a new position, some of the nice things that you have in some of these packages, but it also gave you training to write a business case for a new business.
Perfect.
Yes. So I was like, aha.
Every cloud has a silver lining.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
all the resources needed to start something new. And
I could feel it within me. Like I didn't want to go back. This is a new life. This is a new adventure. This is a new opening. I've done it. And let's go forward and do this.
Wow. Well, we have to take our next break. And when we come back, we'll hear what the results of that little departure from the corporate world yielded. You're listening to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. We'll be back right after this. Stay tuned.